Welcome to the Matchmaker Mentor Podcast, the show where aspiring and experienced matchmakers come to sharpen their skills, grow their businesses, and elevate the matchmaking industry. Your host is Arlene Washburn, an award-winning ethical matchmaking advocate, mentor, and industry innovator. Let's dive in.
Welcome to here we go. Jennifer, I've been looking forward to this conversation ever since our last session where you identified my soul language as partner. That reading was incredible, insightful, and it hit me right in the heart. Can you share with our listeners what soul language is and how you came to develop it?
Sure, I would be honored to, and thank you so much for having me on. So, in 2008, I was asking really big questions like, okay, God, that's what I call my higher power. I know why I'm here, but where are my people? And I'm really mad. Like, what do I do with all these gifts and talents? And I was at a conference where I was speaking about essential oils and life purpose. And I was asking these big questions. And one of the gifts that we got was a massage. Well, it was really a red clay massage. So I'm on the massage table covered in red clay. And I'm like, why did I like that woman across from me, but I didn't care about the woman next to me? Like, what is that? And what I heard was, oh, that's soul language. And I said to the woman as she's dumping red clay on me, I'm like, can you get me a pen? She's like, what? I'm like, get me a pen. And I started hearing and asking more questions. And before long, I had this tangible method, this paradigm to put tangibility to soul and the soul of a business. And it puts words to our three core energies of soul: our mission here, how we'll be known here, that's your partner, and then our soulful personality. And when we have words to something that's deep down inside, it allows us to have this deep sense of acceptance. It allows us to know what we're putting into every relationship field, and we're a relationship field with everything on this planet, everything intangible and everything tangible, and how we put consciousness into creating what we want versus pain and programming. And so I started identifying people, and I went back to that person that was across the way. And I was like, can I identify your soul languages? And she's like, sure. And what we realized is we had a language in common. So of course I got her. And she would describe a situation. I'd be like, I know what you're talking about. I know how you feel. Let me describe the exact same thing that happened to me. Different details, but the exact same thing. And it was a moment of like, oh my God, I'm not alone. And so when you understand your soul languages, you can create this profound connection to create whatever you want.
When we spoke that day, I actually went back and listened to the recording, and I'm like, how does she pinpoint to a T my biggest challenge in life, not just in business, but in everything? And finally figured it out with my relationship. But this whole challenge that I've had of partnership and like that just like came out of left. By the way, the minute you started talking and I started to get goosebumps every time. Last time we were talking, it was the same thing. But like I went back and listened to the recording. I'm like, how did she come up with that? Like it's like you plucked it right out of my head or something. I remember even crying during that session. I'm like, oh my God. And how this is relevant to, I mean, this is relevant to everyone and their business because those little things that are challenges for you kind of permeate. I was just talking to Jason and saying how you do one thing is how you do everything, but it's like that challenge just comes up over and over and over again. And if you can't figure this out, you have a lot of struggle in life, right? And
Yeah.
in business and in everything else. How did you do that? It's just like boggles my
So,
mind.
so I do it through therapeutic kinesiology or muscle testing. So formally what happens is my body becomes a pendulum on your soul's behalf, and your soul moves my body down a testing sheet. So it's kind of metaphysical science. Um, but how I do all the rest is by listening to your soul through my database. And, I'm a master intuitive, so I hear and feel things. But I teach this process to others so they can help others. And what I think it's really important to understand is that soul language is just the stepping stone, it's just the start. All the answers are inside of you. And it's really about making peace with yourself. So we'll use me as an example. So my soulful personality language is called Graceful Warrior. Action, movement, courage, and grace, top line. But most of my life, not so graceful, at war with everything. And when I stopped being at war, I'm literally moved one house over. I got a publisher for my book. I found my partner for life. And it's really about utilizing our energy the way our truth determines to versus the way we've been taught, right? So, my best friend, when he's 20 now, but when her kid was like, well, going into kindergarten, the teacher dropped him off into the car and goes, "There's nothing in Eric's green folder today." And Aaron's like, "Oh my God, there's nothing in Eric's green folder." And she's like, "No, he chose not to participate." She called me. She's like, "There's nothing in his folder." I was like, "Why are you upset?" I go, "Since that kid has come out of the belly, we have asked him, what does he want? What does he need? What now he's choosing not to participate because it's not what he wants or what he needs, right? We are taught differently in order to kind of exist in society. But what soul language allows you to do is it allows you to really accept those deepest parts of you so you can be in the flow versus pain and suffering.
Concepts, because it's okay that you go through life and you have strife and you have failures, because we learn from our failures. But I think the whole idea of the soul language is about not struggling, like going against who you are. When we talked about this briefly, but soul language versus other modalities. Like, a lot of people are familiar with human design or Enneagram, but soul language has, like, feels different. It's more fluid and intuitive. And like, how does soul language stand apart from those other systems?
This is one of my favorite questions, and it actually took me like years to be willing to talk about it. Um, it is an evolution. So soul language evolves. It's energy. So energy evolves with Enneagram, with archetypes, with human design. They're kind of fixed, meaning it's information and it doesn't evolve as you evolve. The soul language definitions are short, they're one pages because it's a jumping off springboard for you to talk to your soul because you have all the answers. I know the more I know, the less I know. And I know that my greatest like joy is when a client goes, "That doesn't resonate with me. Here's what I'm hearing." Great, you're listening. So it differs that way. It also differs as in we're talking about the energies, and energies change in waves. So one summer about 10 years ago, I was identifying a lot of soul languages called the mentor. Mentors are when they're conscious, they're mentoring themselves and others, and they know that their mentorships are really succeeding when their mentorships move on. So by the fifth one, I'm like, "Look, you're going to want to go on a sabbatical." And the woman's like, "Oh my God, how'd you know?" I was like, "Because I've talked to four of you. And now you're all experiencing the same thing because you're all changing in waves, which, we are all so tied together." So it really allows us to understand how we're the individualization of the one. Another difference is a lot of paradigms are steeped in lack.
Mm.
They're steeped in someone having the answer, right? They're steeped in a lot of metaphysical mumbo jumbo that I don't understand, right? Our definitions are simple yet complex, and they're geared towards that individual language. So when we were editing the book, my publisher said, "The editor doesn't understand this line." I was like, "I don't understand it either. But if you ask an observer, they get it." Right? Because you have to hear the way your energy and your own verbiage. So it's so individual. And what I notice about some of the Enneagram human design, people will go, I'm a projector, I'm a 3. And
Mhm.
it becomes a way of putting themselves in a box rather than allowing for their evolution.
Interesting. From a real world application perspective, I know you work with people who have like big missions and visionaries and healers and creatives. How do you help these entrepreneurs or coaches that align, to align with their businesses and work with their soul language in a practical way? Like how do they use this information then?
Yeah. So people can use it anywhere from the 30-minute elevator speech, right? To something as complex as a story I'm going to tell you about me. So every day I sit down and I have a conversation in my mind with my personal soul and my business soul. Usually this happens in the shower. So one summer, about 5 years ago or longer, I was in the shower and I was like yelling at my business energy, like, where are my people? And blah, blah, blah. Now, my business energy is much more still in nature. I am much more warrior in nature. And the business energy went, go to the beach. And I was like, yeah, no, I got things to do. And the business energy is like, please go to the beach. I was like, fine. So I pack up my stuff. I go to the beach. I come home. There are 3 new clients in my inbox because I paused and I listened and I was still. It allows you to understand what you're putting into the business. And I'm not talking about your message points, although it will help with that. What I'm talking about is actually the energy. If I keep putting the feeling, the energy, the vibration of not enough in my business, it is going to implode. If I put enoughness, it is going to expand. If I make war with myself because I'm a graceful warrior, not acting so graceful, I'm going to put that into my business. Right? So it really allows you to understand what energy you're putting into your business. It also allows you to understand what works for you and what doesn't. Meaning, because I'm a teacher of integrity, that's my personal soul language, how I'll be known here. I can see, hear, and understand when things haven't been created with the consciousness of love. Okay. So anytime I feel anyone is words and actions aren't measuring up, I get angst, like my body gets a little rigid, right? So I know exactly when talking with a JV partner, yeah, that works for me or that doesn't. Say you have the energy of pioneering, right? Pioneers are great. They forge new roads for themselves and others, right? Unconsciously, it's like squirrel. They're always creating something new. So if you know that about yourself, that allows you to go, okay, wait, let me look at my business. Do I have 16 projects going? Are any of them completed? Is that serving myself or the business? It's very practical. I have warrior energy. You guys know that already. If I can't implement it into my everyday life, I don't do it. So I'm not a girl that sits on a mountain, right? I do walking meditation, right? I know that things have to be practical. People have to use it. And considering we're living in a 3-second world, right? Our sacred practices have to be integrated. So those are some practical applications.
No, absolutely. In our industry, many matchmakers and love coaches are like very intuitive, but they struggle with clarity, like in their messaging or their business alignment. Like one of the biggest things that comes up in my training is getting people to figure out their target market, for example. What can what can they understand like about one's soul language to reveal about these, like what's an ideal client? And
Okay, do you want to try something?
sure.
Okay, so we're going to do what I call the energetic lineup. Okay,
Okay.
so close your eyes. I want you to imagine that 5 or 6 of your ideal client or clients that you love to work with are in front of you, like in a lineup, like a police station.
Hmm.
I want you to strip them down energetically and answer this first question. What were they experiencing when you first met them?
You want me to tell you this?
Yeah, if you want to share.
Oh, sure. Just uncertainty, struggle not really knowing their next move.
Okay. And when they've done working with you, what has changed?
Uh, Definitely clarity. Sort of having a target and a path that they can go forward in on their
Okay.
own.
And the last question is why do they need to hear it from your voice?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, I guess they could hear it. I think the amount of care that I put into, like, I feel very invested when I work with people, and I want to also personalize everything so that it really works for them and it's not generic. So I think that's helpful. When someone's not clear, if they're getting generic information, it's not going to be helpful.
Okay. So your ideal client is looking for a compassionate journey that takes them from clarity to unclarity to crystal clear vision about who they are here to serve, what their message is, and how they can be of service in the world.
Hmm.
Right?
That.
So all of your marketing should include all those little words. Right? And I think so often people are trying to make it very complicated with demographics. You talk to the energy of your client, you don't talk to their demographics.
Hmm.
Right? So my people are spiritual renegades. They're not going to do it like anyone else. They're highly intuitive, highly innovative. Right? Here's another thing that people forget. They forget that they're dating their client. They are trying to pursue their client instead of seeing if it's a match. So
Hmm.
I use this very simple method based on the Peanuts characters. So my people are Linuses and Sallys. I don't walk with the Charlie Brown because I want to eat them for breakfast because um, they have a lot of victim energy. I used to work with Lucy's, but they pull the football. And I would be like, oh my God, I keep working with these Lucy's because I don't believe I'm enough to serve my ideal client. So I just wait to be in pain, right? So people can determine their ideal client by just their intuition. So you could pick fruit, you could pick movies, whatever resonates with you, and just ask your soul to give you an image or a thought about your ideal client. So you could start to describe it and accept it to yourself. And then you can include that in marketing.
This is such an important message because in the matchmaking world, which a lot of people think is very glamorous and like
Oh, I bet it's not.
yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful career. You can make your own hours. It's very lucrative and fulfilling when you help people. The biggest challenge matchmakers face is taking on the wrong client that keep you up at night, that make you pull your hair out and lose the will to live.
Lucy's, Lucy's, all Lucy's, right? So the first question you're going to have to ask yourself if you have those clients is why? Like, what need are you serving in yourself or lack by taking on those clients? Like, what are you trying to prove? What limiting belief is creating those clients? And the next thing you have to activate, and I can show you how to do that, is activating that you're enough to really have a healthy relationship with your clients. Meaning, divine intelligence, that's your body, fill me with the feeling and knowing that I am worthy to have the greatest clients in the world.
Yeah, and so two things came up as you were talking. Number one, they will take on clients that are not ideal for them because it's a money mindset, scarcity mentality. But then also, the biggest thing that I see, especially with newer matchmakers, some old school matchmakers are still this way. They have no boundaries. Like, their clients can call them at any time, 24/7. They will answer emails at the wee hours. Now, what I want to say that with a grain of salt, because if that works for you, God bless, go do your thing. That's your personality. What I found when I was a matchmaker, that setting those boundaries set me free, that I had more time and energy to recuperate, to be able to be a better practitioner. And I think people don't see that aspect, and they think, well, I just need to be there 24/7 because, this is a personalized business and I have to, and if they're struggling it, and that just makes
It's
makes
called codependence.
Right.
And right, and what happens when you create a codependent relationship,
Mm.
right? And let's think of it this way. If you're holding correct boundaries for yourself with your clients, you're teaching them to hold correct boundaries in their relationships. And those relationships will be sustainable and last, right? That kind of I remember when I really let this go. I can tell you the exact time and space. This woman who was a Lucy was literally getting ready to blame me for her lack of movement in her business. And as the words are coming out of her mouth, I said, I don't think we're a perfect fit. I'm going to send you your money, your entire money back, even though we did half the sessions, your entire money back. And I don't think I can support you. I don't think I'm the girl for you. And she's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, I don't think this is a fit. She's
Yeah.
like, well, when should I have my money back? I was like, it should be in your account right now. Doo-doo-doo. I sent it off, right? It
Mhm.
was so freeing. And it created such an expansion in my business because it said, I put myself first. And money doesn't have free will. It operates on your own will. It
Mhm.
operates what you put into it. So imagine for a moment, in a relationship, you, not you personally, but, you know, bending over backwards, right? Sacrificing yourself. And that's not a sacred offering, that's a sacrifice in
Mhm.
order to get that relationship. You'll either go insane or you'll become a shell. You're never going to be happy. And if you want a business that's sustainable, it must be happy for you, which comes from the inside out.
Yeah. It's such an important thing. I mean, you mentioned refunds. I mean, that's another area in our industry where there are times where you know that a person, when they come to you as a matchmaker, you need to decide, is this person really ready for matchmaking, or really do they need a coach or a therapist? Because matchmaking is bringing someone a fish. When you matchmake, typically that is the requirement. And this is what people are paying you for. Some people get lucky and get matchmakers who are also coaches who can actually teach you how to fish
Right.
or teach you how to not self sabotage or point out your
Or not have to throw the fish back.
the blind spots, right? And it's like it's not even a criticism on the dater. There's just so much misinformation out there, and so many areas where people get tripped up and don't know how to be in a relationship. And I honestly do not blame the daters. It's just our society, especially right now, things are so upside down with our society. But my point is that there are times where you have to realize we're not going to succeed here, and you're going to end up getting a bad review or just struggling, and they're going to keep you up at night. Just give somebody a refund. I love that you said that and volunteered that, because that's often the ideal scenario. Even if you have a no refund policy, which most matchmakers do, it's not worth it.
No.
Money to me is energy, and I feel energetically like if you need to just give back that energy so that they feel whole and complete and they don't resent you, I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and I remember when I first started dating Warner, who will be together 10 years in May. Um, I had this client, he was making me cry. Like I'm hard to make cry. She was like, she would like just badger me. And this was before I finally sealed the deal with No Lucy's. But Warner said to me, what are you doing? And he knew nothing about how I did. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, she's making you cry. Like, this is not worth any of the money. It's really not. He's like, end it. Give her the money back. You'll get something new. And he was right. And if you set up that you are the most important person in your business, that you are that is a fierce way to love yourself, your business will provide you with the love back. But you have to be willing to put that love in for yourself. You can't want anything more for your clients than they want for themselves. And I think that, you know, as you're growing your business, you're going to get more savvy. But if your gut is screaming no, then turn them down. give them another opportunity somewhere else, because that's going to serve you in the long run. Because what you're saying to the universal forces is, that doesn't work for me. I want something that does. And you're aligning with your goodness versus, want taking a brownie when you really want like cake.
Yeah, and it's, I think that it's not really a selfish way to be. It's actually a gift to the client as well, because I see this all the time when a matchmaker takes on someone that they really feel they cannot help. Once you have that mindset, you're going to, you yourself are going to sabotage the situation for your client. I see it all the time, and you're going to end up giving a refund. So if you in your mind think, I can't help this person, send them to somebody else, because somebody else can help. I believe there's a lid to every pot, and most people are matchable or can work with a matchmaker. Not all, but yeah, this is so important. How does this translate? In terms of the soul language in love and relationships. I think you mentioned that you've worked with couples.
Oh
You
yeah, I love that.
know, they're yeah.
So when the couple comes together, it has its own energy, and we can identify that.
Yeah.
So I have these amazing friends called Valmar. It's a combination of their names. And Valmar, she's a pioneer, he's a hunter huntress, and the energy that they come together is pioneering. So they know that the focus, the mission, the intention of the relationship is to forge new roads for themselves and for others. So instead of getting frustrated when they are coming together and there's always something new to explore, they've embraced it. And they also know that how to utilize their own consciousness in that energy. So it's really important to understand what you're putting into the relationship field between your partner. Because when you put something different, that partner has the opportunity to do something different. And most of us don't. Most of us put our pain in programming. So I'll give you a tangible example from my life. So when Warner and I was first dating, I have that warrior energy, and I detest taking out the garbage. It's like the worst thing. And he would go, "Do you want me to take out the garbage?" And I'd be like, "No, no, no, I got it." Why? Right? Because I was strong. And to be vulnerable, taking out the garbage, which is no big deal, was like having to open up, right? So
Mhm.
let me tell you when this shifted, which wasn't that long ago. I broke my ankle a couple of years ago, and we have a dog, and it's November, and I'm outside on he wasn't home, and my landlord said, "Jen, just call me. I'll walk the dog." I'm out at 7:30 at night in the cold. I have my boot on my foot with the ankle. I'm missing a shoe. And Marlon is looking at me going, "Why are you downstairs with the dog? I said I would do it." I was like, "I don't know, Marlon. I just can't receive. I just," right? That was the moment I was like, "Oh, this is what I keep putting into all of these relationships and
Mhm.
even in my business." And that's the moment I was like, "Okay, I'm going to heal that." When we understand how we're using our energy, either in programming or in consciousness, we can make different decisions and create different outcomes, right? And that is for me huge.
That whole story resonates with me because I've always been that person who doesn't ask for help. But then I'm like feeling resentful or struggling, or, thinking that I'm on an island by myself and I have no one to turn to. And so, how does someone heal that persona? How do you get past that, especially with the knowledge of this system that you're using?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you don't even have to know your soul languages to start to heal that. You
Mm,
get to use your body's lack of free will to activate a knowing that you're safe to be vulnerable. So it's simply divine intelligence. That's your body. Fill me with the feeling and knowing that I'm safe to be vulnerable. And when you do that, you should feel a little opening in your heart, and you keep doing that. And
mm,
in moments where you feel like, "Oh, I'm resentful," that's the moment where you get to pause and go, "Divine intelligence, Fill me with the feeling of knowing that I'm safe to be vulnerable. If you can't get there, you can say a willingness to know that I'm safe to be vulnerable. And you keep doing it. And you keep shifting and pausing. And you keep making different decisions. Now, if you know your soul languages, you would turn into your soul languages and go, okay, what's the experience that created this lack of feeling safe being vulnerable? And then how can my soul help me rewrite that programming?
Mm.
And you would do it that way. So there's a lot of ways that we can come through or at this situation and to create something new. Well, you just have to be willing to kind of make a match with yourself and listen to yourself in a whole new way.
Yeah, because I find it very interesting when I encounter people with a similar scenario in their love life, for example. It was always a feeling of not feeling worthy. And then, but people can't connect with that message because it makes them feel like a
Unworthy.
right. So it's like, but yeah, but the unworthiness feeling may have come from, okay, well, your dad, I'll give myself as an example. My dad walked out on me. He left during a party for New Year's and never came back. And that's how my parents broke up. And actually, how he left, because my mom was clueless. She had no idea what was going on either. And so, like, when you have someone so important in your life walk out on you and do something like that, then you feel like, oh, well, if this person who was part of bringing me into the world didn't feel I was worthy, now you walk through life with that feeling of unworthiness, whether you recognize it or not.
Right.
And I could be like very strong and competent and, help and heal and all this. But that underlying belief system, somehow you have to clear it out, because then that translates into, yeah, you're competent, you're this, you're that, but you don't accept anything, any help, because you in reality feel unworthy of it.
Yeah, or make it your friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are limiting beliefs that are designed to allow for a better choice, right? Your soul is always saying more and more and more, and our little tiny brain here's not enough, not enough, not enough, right? So my big hot buttons are failure and self-worth. They're kind of the same coin, right? So I know when I'm in failure and lack of worth that I am getting ready to ask for more, to experience more love, to experience more abundance, whatever that is. So when I'm in that feeling, that's the moment when I pause and I tune in. Or that's the moment where I pause and I activate the love in my heart and I offer myself love, and then I take from action from there. So instead of feeling or seeing it as something's wrong with me, I start to see it as a skill builder because it's building more skills.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to know your big theme of disconnection, just look at any of the big times in your life to see what your thought pattern was, right? It could be lack of trust, it could be abandonment, it could be self worth. There are only three limiting beliefs, big ones. And they all kind of go down to not feeling safe. But the big three are: you feel unworthy, you believe love is conditional, or you feel unworthy of love. And for all of you matchmakers, if you understand what your client's big limiting belief is, you can make it your friend to help them find their match versus working against it.
That's great. I was just about to ask you, if you were training a new matchmaker today, what role do you think energy, intuition, and alignment and all of that plays into creating successful matches? And I think you hit on something right there, just connecting with that, making it your friend, and being able to identify it and help people break through, because you and I are very familiar with all this stuff, and I've done a lot of self work. You have as well. We can figure this out for ourselves, and sometimes we still need help, but for the clients that are coming to us, they don't have this knowledge necessarily. So they need a guide. And I think I mean, I really love the field of matchmaking, which is why I teach it. I think that matchmaker, the role is going to expand more and more. And I really think that it's a big solution to a big problem we have in this country and in the world of loneliness and lack of connection. But if you were training one today, how would you tell them to conduct themselves to be able to help people really make good matches?
Yeah, I would look for I would start to listen to your gut feeling, right? Your first kind of response of someone on a body level. I would also ask them to really be an active listener, see what, hear what they keep saying about themselves. I would ask them questions about their parents and their upbringings, little tiny questions that doesn't have to be a therapy session, just so you can understand. And I would have them set up a structure where they're actually listening to what they want and what they need in their own business and taking action from there versus what they think they should be doing. And then my final kind of tip is get a good bookkeeper because you need a good bookkeeper. It's my big tip. Right?
Yes, it's tax day here in
You
America.
need a good bookkeeper. You need a good bookkeeper. I mean, it's also if you have the right one. Most of the right ones will help you through any lack that you have. So you need those people on your team that will help you through. But remembering, as a new matchmaker, you're in the business because you have this calling. Let the calling lead you.
Mhm.
And when you don't know the answer, simply say, let me get back to you with that, or let me think about that. And go ask for support or advice from your mentors. I think it's key to kind of know that the more you know, the less you know, and
Mm.
allow your inner wisdom to be in charge.
You said so many things here that I'm going to jot down as quotes. I'll give you credit. But no, I love everything that you said. And even the fact that you brought up bookkeeping, because a lot of people who are heart centered and go into this industry, and what you said also, that it's a calling, because I'm racking my brain trying to figure out what is the profile of a matchmaker. Meanwhile, you got lawyers, you got guidance school counselors, digital marketing experts, former pharmaceutical industry, all these crazy different fields are leaving to go into matchmaking. So it's very hard. And I do feel, I put that in my marketing all the time, that it's a calling. It's like, hey, you need to come do this,
Yeah.
right? But because they're heart centered, sometimes they don't have that desire to look at their numbers, to look at their accounting and all that. And for you, you
And
know,
you have a hobby, you don't have a business.
right, right.
Yeah.
And I always say, if either you're good at business, or get a partner or hire somebody to do it, because you're going to struggle,
Yeah.
because then you have to do everything.
And then you can't be concerned about your clients because you're too concerned about where your next paycheck's coming, right? Or,
Mhm.
the mortgage on the house, right? It's really about understanding you're being loved, supported, and provided for on a metaphysical level, and then giving the structure, the riverbed for the flow. If you don't have the riverbed for the flow, how do you expect anything to happen, right?
Mhm.
So, it is a business. Make sure you have, your contracts done, your agreements done, how you're serving them, your boundaries, and really, again, I'm sure you say this in matchmaking, right? People are going to treat you how you teach them to treat you, right? So really understand, I call it the rules of Jen. What are your rules? And stick to the rules, because the moment you kind of move past that boundary for yourself, you're sacrificing what you need for your calling, what you desire for your calling. And that's going to create wonky energy, especially for most people that go into matchmaking. I would call them master healers, right? So if a master healer doesn't get paid for their healing, that kind of misfires that gift and talent, and weird things start to happen. So, you deserve to get paid for your support, your guidance, your wisdom. Set up those structures that allow that to happen naturally.
I love that. And I love that you talked about having your rules or your structure. I think it's so important when you own a business. It doesn't matter if it's matchmaking, whatever it is, that you have a system that you take people through that's consistent, A, with what they purchased, so that you're not selling the same thing to everyone at a different price, because I feel like there's no integrity in that, which I see that a lot. I believe that you should be taking people through a process which is what they're buying into anyway. And when you have that kind of structure and process, people feel more confident in what you're doing. They're like, okay, this is a system that I'm following
Right.
along and I'm trusting the process. But if you don't have a process, but you're telling your clients, because I hear a lot of matchmakers say, just trust the process. It's not just sending people out on dates. There's other things that have to happen. And there's a system for it. And that's the kind of stuff that I teach is not just setting people up on dates.
Right.
Matchmaking
There's a
is
lot more.
way bigger than that.
It's
Um,
that's really the last part of the process, right? Like, there's all
exactly.
this stuff have to happen. It's like before that, comes to kind of the solidification, and you can't do one step of that system. You have to do it all because it's like a relay race, right? Like they have to. I'm mixing metaphors because I don't know anything about sports, right? But they have to go over those little jumping things, right? Before they can get to the end of the race, they can't go around them
Yeah.
because if they try to go around them, it's not going to create what they want in their business and for their clients, and their clients can't go around the hurdles as well.
Yeah. And really your hurdles should be things that are actually where they do one thing and it builds on that. So you're taking them through a process that's going to help them be more successful.
Right.
And I'm curious, what is your process when you take on a new client? Why are they coming to you, first of all, and what do you do with them?
So, people come to me because their voice and their vision aren't in alignment, right? So they're kind of not getting what they want. They're highly talented. They're great for their clients, but they're not experiencing their business to its fullest.
Mm.
And the first thing we always do is a soul language ID where we identify the personal languages. Then we always do a business ID where we identify the business energy. Then I usually teach them about how they're utilizing their energy. That's called protocols. And then I teach them a metaphysical process called the coning, which is bringing all of their teams together. And then it can be really personal. I can look at a person and go, you need a little voice work. Or listen, you need some strategy because you don't know what your strategy is. Or let's do some ideal client work. Or let's talk about your messaging because you I know you know what it is here, but you can't get it out here because there's some sort of gap. I do a lot of clearing sessions and I will, do anything from teaching them how to work with a manifestation process called the gardening to really understanding what their vision is and how to bring that into existence. So it always starts with the soul language ID and then we go to business ID. It's very like, if you don't have that tool, um, that's the way I teach everyone to connect. So it's kind of standard.
I love how, you have all this language of the soul, the soul language and all of that, but it's very strategic and very much like kind of like taking people through a process like a business coach. Like, let's not get it twisted, while you're connecting to your soul, you're connecting to your energy and all that stuff, but you're actually forming something that is solid and sustainable because in everything you said there, you sounded like a business coach.
I really meld soul and strategy a lot. I mean, I spent 17 years in marketing and PR, so I think and I talk in sound bites. And I can just see where the energetic leaks are in someone's business. And so how we close that is by talking to their personal soul and their business soul. Um, so often a client will say something, I go, I know you said this, but I really think you meant this. And it's like, boom. And they're like, oh my God, can I use that? I'm like, yeah, that's what you said. You just got all caught up in your own like pain and suffering, right?
Mhm.
I have this habit of or the skill of helping people grow their businesses. I will be in the grocery store and talking to someone. I'm like, oh, that's a business and blah, blah, blah. This is how you do that. And they're like, really? And I was like, yeah. Me and my friend Erin, we were in Florida at Ford's, which is a burger place. And our waitress had this bracelet. We're like, we love that. And she's like, well, it's a business and blah, blah. And we outlined her whole business and we're like, here's how you do it. And she's like, "Really?" I was like, "This is all you need to do." I mean, we were gonna create a whole product named after that woman, but we never got around to it. I just have the skill of being able to help people grow their business.
I love that. And you touched on something like huge when you spoke about energetic leaks, especially around money. So, like many of the matchmakers that I mentor struggle with charging their worth or attracting the right type of client. And, in terms of, we're talking dollars and cents because the if you charge less, you have to take on more clients and you're exhausted versus charging an adequate amount. No, I'm not talking about ripping people off or just raise your prices like everybody's. I'm saying charge adequately so that you can feel whole and have the energy to really be able to work with this client and not have to take on a bunch of people. What advice do you have for transforming their relationship with money and the value, like from the energetic perspective?
I love that. So I have a docking barking dog.
Don't worry
So
about
excuse
that.
me. Okay.
We love dogs.
So Jennifer Bloom, who's does soul language and money, where we identify the energy between soul and money. But here's what I'm going to say to people. You know, money is just how you feel about yourself and your relationship to your higher power. That's all it is.
Mm,
Right? So if you feel as though you are not worthy of this, if you feel that the divine universe tree Bob cupcake doesn't know who you are, then that's going to reflect in your money. And I think one of the hardships that I had when I went from PR, which I was the money girl, like I would come up with the money programs, to kind of selling myself, was I thought I had to sell myself,
mm,
and you're not. And stop thinking about what that person thinks or feels about their money. Start thinking about how you feel. Because most of the time people are like, well, I don't know if they're going to pay. And they said that, they lost $1,000 in the stock market. And like, you're making up a story. So your homework is to start to really analyze your money stories
mm.
and ask yourself why you believe that's true,
I love
and
that.
then get curious about how it can be different, and watch where your money in your mouth is, so to speak. So here's a great story that I heard from a friend of mine. He was really doing abundance work, right? And he was like really like imagining and feeling that he was more abundant, and he was at the grocery store and he was looking at sugar packets, and he wanted like sweet and low, but he was like, they're 3 cents more than the like off brand. And he's like, "Oh my god. What I'm doing is not measuring up with what my vibration wants to be." Like, start small. Start noticing where you're not being generous with yourself, and start being generous with yourself, because that will alone increase your money relationship.
I think that's such a great analogy because I also believe that if you are not willing to invest in yourself and pay a coach or business coach or a therapist, whomever you need to really up level, because that's one of the best investments you can make, then you're going to attract people who are not willing to pay as well, that are not willing to invest in themselves to achieve the things that they know they want to achieve and they can't do on their own. And
Yeah.
and you have what they need. So I think that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Um, Gosh, there's so much more that we can go into, but for the sake of time, what is one thing you want to share with people about what you do and how important this is and how this can impact all areas of their lives if they haven't already gotten that message through the conversation? What would you want to share that we haven't talked about already?
Well, thank you. I, th- your soul has, Big Jen, your soul has all the answers, right? It's about accessing those answers and asking the right questions. Um, and it's really about you utilizing your energy appropriately to achieve what you want. And that takes practice, it takes unlearning, and it sometimes takes support and someone who's already jumped those hurdles. So you don't have to spend a lot of time in the pain state, and we can make it a shift quicker, speedier. And I think it's also about letting go. It's about knowing that you're safe to be vulnerable. And as matchmakers, everyone, you're asking your clients to know that they're safe showing up and being who they are. And listening to your soul is never going to say you suck, because that's what most people are afraid of. It actually is like coming home. It actually makes you creates this deep sense of support, love, and ability to know that something out there has your back. And I think that's key. I think if you're in the business of love and you're not in conversation with that essential nature, which is your love, then you're doing yourself a disservice.
How do people actually do that from a practical standpoint? Do they do guided meditation? Do they what specific thing can they do to tap into their soul language and really connect with themselves? Because I
Yeah,
do see people often like, I need this and I need to take this course and I need to do, they're looking, and it's all in there. They already have the answers. How do
yeah.
they tap in?
So the simplest thing to do is today, tomorrow, when you get done watching, close your eyes. Just imagine that you're knee to knee, eye to eye with this thing called your soul, and ask this question: what do I need to know today?
Hmm,
And just listen. And if you might get some visuals, you might get an in-body sensation. If you get something and you don't understand, tell me more. If you don't get something, go and walk the dog, take a shower, wash dishes, keep your hands busy, and wait for the pop. And then just keep notes. And so understand how your soul is speaking to you so you can have that deep conversation so you can take action on it.
I love it. Jennifer, you've got so many like beautiful
Yeah.
offers. You work with business owners, you work with individuals looking to live more consciously. How can people work with you and where should they begin if they're curious about soul language?
So I think the best place to begin is at the soullanguage.us site, soullanguage.us. There's a newsletter. I give out a lot of free stuff. We have a discovery session where one of your soul languages will be identified. You have to experience this to understand its value for yourself. It's so personal. So that's a good place. I have a Facebook group called Spiritual Renegades where I share a lot of information, and there's a lot of groovy people there. And then I have a podcast called Ask and Answered by Soul. Oh, and I just got yelled at from my spiritual team. I also have a book called Soul Language, which is on Amazon as well.
I love it. You have so many resources. We'll be sure to include that in the show notes. And you definitely need to come back. I will tell you if this is not 100% clear to anyone, because sometimes we're not ready for information, I will say that I personally experienced a session with Jennifer and she had me in tears and she pinpointed immediately my struggle and it was life changing. And it's funny because sometimes you have people on your calendar and you're like, I don't even know what this conversation is about. The dog agreed with me. And we got on this call and I was like flabbergasted. By the end of it, I was like, oh my God. And people know that I'm very science and research based, but there's this other realm, the metaphysics, whatever you want to call it. And I do believe there's science behind all of it that exists that we need to tap in. We need to tap in. A lot of it has to do with tapping into our bodies, our soul, etc. So I really I'm very grateful to have you on the show, and I hope you'll come back. I'll be on your show too.
It is my honor. I would love for you to have me on the show. I think my boyfriend's home, so the dogs are going crazy. But thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here, and I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you, Jennifer. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to the Matchmaker Mentor Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with fellow matchmakers and friends. For more resources, training, and inspiration, visit lovepromastermind.com and follow us on social media. Remember, matchmaking isn't just a career, it's a calling. Let's keep building connections, changing lives, and growing together. Until next time, stay inspired and keep matching.